Welcome to the Porsche Club Insider, your one stop for all things Porsche and PCA. Here's your host, Vu Nguyen, and the Insider crew.
Welcome to episode podcast 30. I'm not at the podcast studio. I'm actually in Stuttgart, Germany, and I'm with my friend here, Paul Gregor. Many of you know him. He's been around PCA for quite some time. I'll introduce him formally a little bit later. But we also have Manny Damon. Hopefully we can see him and Damon as well in the studio. A little bit more comfortable, you guys.
Not really. I don't like this seat at all. I'm used to my spot where Damon's sitting because there's more room for my laptop, my coffee cup. This feels like the middle seat on Southwest.
See, I'm more comfortable because now I'm naturally facing the camera.
Don't get too comfortable in that seat. I'm taking it back next podcast.
Don't get too comfortable in the seats that you're in because I'm coming back.
You could have this seat back. So you're really in Zuffenhausen, right?
I am, and maybe Paul, you heard the exact building that we're in.
We're actually in the new, because a lot of the buildings have changed over time here. The space is tight, and so we're in the new Works Delivery Center, which is up on the hill, if people know that, next to the Alcatel, the old Alcatel building. So in Zuffenhausen, in the Werkslieferungszentrum.
So this is within walking distance to the Porsche Museum, and to my right over here is a parking structure that is really, when you walk in there, it's like a kid in a candy store because it is just, what, 3 levels? Four levels of Porsches, and they have this vending machine, and if you have the correct ID, you can just punch in numbers and get the keys to a GT3, GT4, Panamera, Taycan, and it's pretty cool.
It's the home to our fleet of cars that we use for events worldwide, and so there's probably, with all the different fleets in there, there's multiple hundreds of cars that are in there, and so there's one system to take care of. So, if you will, it's the Matchbox box that we had as kids that's kind of in real.
Exactly. So there's a lot of...
I got to say before we get started that it's pretty cool having Paul on. It was a surprise. I don't think Damon and I knew that Paul was coming on. So for those that are listening, Paul is part of PCA, essentially, even though he worked for Porsche. He really did so much for PCA and things that we always talk about, like the Club Coupe, the restoration project, tech tactics, so many different parts he touched when he was here in the U.S. and working from Germany on behalf of PCA. So it's great to have him back in the club's role, and even though he's in Europe, but to hear and see, it's great to have you on the show.
Very cool to be here, believe me.
And he started about a year after I came on board with PCA. And, you know, when we talk about the relationship and how it's grown and for the better and all the different things that Manny just mentioned, it's because this guy right here helped us navigate all the different waters to make all those things happen.
It was a team effort, but we've had a really good run. I think we've come a long way. And I think what you're seeing in your club today is benchmark for a lot of clubs around the world. So we've done well.
So before we get into all the things that has been going on since last Wednesday, I don't even know how many days it's been here in Germany, but I've got so much to share with you all. But I think I'm going to have to download to the staff and kind of organize it and share with you in chunks. But let's talk about Rennsport, because more recently we had some activity there.
Yeah, it was a challenging day when the tickets went on sale. It was I guess we knew our members and their enthusiasm and how they would be lining up to buy tickets. And maybe the ticket company that Laguna hired wasn't so prepared for it. But we got through it, and I got to give kudos to our member services team here at PCHQ, because they worked nonstop answering the phone. So much so, Laura went out and bought them lunch, got them coffee, because I don't even know they got bathroom breaks. Their phone was ringing off the hook because people, couldn't get through to the track or to the ticket company. And it was overwhelming for the server, but I think we got through it, and I think most everyone got the tickets they were looking for.
Yeah, and I want to show our appreciation to Porsche Cars North America to even think about giving PCA members the opportunity to get their tickets first. And so, Paul, you and the team at PEC Atlanta and such that helped arrange all of this. Yes, it didn't go as expected, but still it's an opportunity for us to kind of get to the front of the line. And I believe it opens up to the general
The 28th.
on the 28th.
Mhm.
So it was several days in advance, and I think as of right now, things are running fairly smoothly. And again, thank you to the PCA staff, where there's a lot of times when even our own members don't understand that, we're in a supporting role here. We didn't contract the ticket company. We don't, we share a certain amount of information in hopes to make things easier for our members, but we do not manage it. We don't pick who does it. But yet, our staff kind of got beat up for it. So like I said, I want to thank the member services for taking the heat and smiling and getting through it.
Yeah, there were some mean things said on social media. I write that off as just knee-jerk reactions people have to automatically blame PCA. But, everyone, I always say when Apple has problems with their debut of their new phone, what's the rest of us going to do when it comes to computers? It happens, and we got past it. The track got past it, and it's going to be a great event in a year. We're all looking forward to it. What PCA will be in charge of is the sale of the parade lap tickets. That will be announced. So once again, ahead of time, it will be offered to PCA members first, just like these admission tickets. So listen to the podcast, subscribe to eBreak to get notice. Otherwise, you're just checking the website all the time to find a notice. But eBreak News and the podcast will be the first one to let you know when parade lap tickets, because they will also sell out very quickly too. Because even people who've driven on the track want to be on the track, even if just for a few laps, to be part of Rennsport.
Absolutely, and I'll get into some of the things that I've learned as I've been here the past couple of days, and people here are super excited about Rennsport, and I have a little bit to share. But before we get into that, how was your weekend? What'd you guys do?
Well, before I get into that, actually, let me go through a couple FAQs since people are listening and they're wondering about Rennsport. Stuff we learned that the staff compiled. At some point, we're going to put this on our website. But these were the questions that they were asking. Some of the questions they were asking our member services personnel. People who went to last Rennsport remember there was a tractor race, and it was very popular. So people with tractors have been asking about that. We're still waiting to hear about will there be a tractor race. Bruce Canepa is the one who's been overseeing the race groups and which cars get in, which cars don't get in. So I would imagine that he will have more information as that becomes available. There will be camping, the track said. Once again, you're going to have to contact the track about that. But those of you who've camped before at Laguna, I think you can expect the same. If you bought a corral ticket and you've either sold a model Porsche you're going to bring, or you made a mistake and you just picked the wrong corral, you have to call the track up directly to get that changed. We can't do that at PCA, and I don't think they can do it online at the track either. You got to call the track, and that number is 831-242-8200. Once again, 831-242-8200. Will there be a club race? Like we covered this in the last podcast. Yes, PCA will have a race group, and more information will be coming up. They anticipate in a few days we'll have information about that on the PCA Club Racing website. Is there a limit to how many corral passes you can buy? There is a limit, one per person. So if you have a co-entrant or a co-member, be a spouse or a relative, you each can buy a ticket. So it's essentially 2 corral tickets per membership number. There are 24 different classes in the corral. Doesn't mean that there's 24 different parking lots. It just means the way Porsche wants to spread out the corral and have a good mix of cars is it breaks out into 24 different models. So it's important that you pick the correct model, because they'll be checking that when the cars come into the corral. And if you have the wrong model, odds are they won't let you into the corral, and they'll direct you to general parking, which is i.e. the dusty area of Laguna Seca. For the Corral Pass, it's a 4-day pass. The track is not selling any 1, 2, or 3-day Corral Pass, so you just have to buy all 4 days, and that's your only option. And I think does it the children under 15 are free with the paying adults. And looking at the FAQ here, PCA is not reserved any hotel rooms. So people, since this is not a PC event and we're not in charge of it, the hotels you're pretty much on your own. A lot of hotels aren't taking reservations for at least a year. Some it's 6 months. So you have to check and see when they actually open up reservations. Some Airbnbs are like that. Other Airbnbs aren't aware of Rennsport, and the pricing is actually pretty low. So it's something to do some research. According to Laguna Seca, there is no refund. All sales are final. So if you want to return your ticket, you're going to have to sell it on the open market.
So I saw Paul playing around with his phone. Do you have a little information to add?
No, just the one comment to add to that, because we've had some questions coming in. I think the reaction, as you said, with the overload and stuff, is just a testament to the interest of the event that's there. There's a lot of people interested in this event, and we've had a lot of international people asking us about the tickets that are on sale now. I think for the internationals, it's important to clarify that the tickets you're selling now are also with the Corral Pass. Mm-hmm. So general admission tickets are only ongoing sale for everybody as of the 28th. The tickets that are on sale now are for the PCA and the Corrals, which means you must bring a car to be there. So for a lot of the international guests, that was not quite clear. So just to clarify that point, tickets for everybody go on the sale on the 28th. But I think, it shows the interest of the event. There's a huge excitement there. So the pre-advance tickets you've been offering are the ones only with Corral passes and not general admission alone.
And for those who've never been to Laguna Seca, when we say parking's outside the track, that just means it's on the outside of the track. It's not like in a different city or where you're taking a shuttle bus miles away. It's just dirt lots they have around the track that is not considered the inside of the track or the infield. So you'll have to walk across a bridge to get into the infield. And I would have ventured to say the majority of people will probably be parking outside of the track, unless, as Paul has articulated, you drive your Porsche with the Corral Pass.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks, guys. Again, thank you to the member services for putting that list together. That's going to be super helpful. And you said we're going to be putting that online as well?
I think they're working on they still have some questions they have to be answered, so they want to get a little bit more thorough, and then they'll put it online. But that was the most common questions that they were being asked.
Awesome. All right, so back to your weekend. How was it?
I'm rebuilding brake calipers right now, so
okay.
I'm getting there. So my Cayman has it's stock brakes. It's an 07 model, so I'll be putting Cayman R brakes and discs onto it, which the Cayman R, Cayman S, and base Cayman from 09 to 2012 have the same exact brakes. The brake booster is the same across the .1 and .2 models, so it's really a bolt-on mod. But you can see there in this picture, this is one of the front brake calipers. Behind it are the caliper pistons, which push the brake pads and squeeze the rotor. So what I'm doing there is I took out all the seals, pulled out the pistons, inspected them, inspected inside the cylinder bores, and cleaned everything out. I'll be putting high temp boots on, and hopefully it all goes well. They're brakes, so you only get one shot at this. Can't have them failing on you when you're on the test drive. But so far, so good.
So were your brakes going bad, or is it just an
They're
upgrade?
about time to be replaced, and I'll be driving on track. In future years, I figured I'd do an upgrade.
And does that change you in class?
No, brakes are open. Usually, at least.
Damon is preparing for Roger Penske to be in the stands when he makes his driver's ed debut.
Yeah, this is how I go pro. First step.
He's going to have the most well-prepared green group car that I've ever seen.
Yeah, we'll see.
You're going to start in green group? That's true, because you have no driving history.
Yeah, well, I do, but very, very little on track. So I'll be in green, I'm sure.
Oh, that's going to be pretty interesting.
It might just be one day, but before they move them up. But yeah, it'll be a very, very well prepared Cayman for driver's ed. Plus, he's rebuilding them at the right time, because you don't want to rebuild them when they're leaking and the piston has damaged the core and all hosts of problems. So this is actually the perfect time when you don't need to rebuild them. Is a good time to rebuild them.
Yeah, and I should say I bought those calipers off of Rennlist, actually. Our ad director emailed me saying, hey, there's a cheap set of Cayman R calipers on Rennlist, and I knew at some point I'd probably be upgrading, so I bought them. So those are not the brakes that are currently on the car or that I've been using. So the front brakes that are currently on the Cayman, the stock brakes, will be going onto my 2015 Golf TDI. And I have the adapter kit for that, so I'll have Porsche brakes on it.
Look at you. I've been busy in the garage.
Oh, yeah.
How about you, man? What'd you do this weekend?
I actually took 2 comp days this past week, and I did nothing but maintenance on the cars. So I changed oil in 6 cars, and I have about 40-some quarts of oil sitting next to my house that we got to take to the recycling center. I bled the brakes on the 914. That's a little photo. That Mighty Vac is the greatest invention ever.
Absolutely.
Because I would usually get my wife to help me bleed brakes, which meant she had to be home. And she would always ask, because she doesn't drive manual transmissions, which pedal does she want me to push on? And that would scare the heck out of me, because I would tell her, you can't mess around. You got to use the brake pedal, not the clutch pedal. And after having too much air in my brakes from her doing it, I got this Mighty Vac, and I think that's what it's called, right?
The pressure bleeder. They're awesome. That's what I use.
Yeah. I know Vu has one too. It's an incredible tool for one person to be able to change brake fluid.
I apologize, guys. Where we're sitting, it's kind of like a bar, and there's a fridge underneath that just kicked on, so I don't know if it's messing up. Oh, there it goes.
You can hear it fine.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was maintenance for me. Wasn't really days off, but I got to do a lot of delayed maintenance because I haven't had time on the 914. I drove so little last year. I'm so ashamed. When I was draining the oil, it was almost brand new, and I realized I put less than 500 miles on it. So I actually took it to Cars and Coffee on Saturday because I felt so guilty I hadn't driven it in a few months.
Weather was good. Good turnout.
Yeah, a little bit brisk in the morning, but nothing to keep the people away. It was a typical Hunt Valley horsepower showing on a Saturday morning.
Yeah, it feels like fall now. The weather has changed. It's that driving season now.
Well, it definitely is chillier here in Germany as well. Been wearing the sports coat and light jacket everywhere I've been.
So what what else I did was, and actually my wife came with me. Our region had a Concours judging school because they have so many new. They want to teach new people how to be judges. So it's the only photo I took of the event. We were showing the experienced judges were showing the future judges, where to find dirt, and it was funny. The conversation inside was for 2 hours, going over how many points you take off for certain things, tenths of a point, and telling stories. And I thought, this is a perfect advertisement for Works Reunion because it's a whole different style. In fact, they're even using a Works class instead of Street Concours. They're using what they call Works, which is the way the cars are judged at Works Reunion, where it isn't so much an emphasis on a Q-tip cleansed car, but how the car presents itself and the story from the owner and whatnot. But yeah, it was a pretty good event. And about 15 minutes after this photo was taken, it just poured down rain. You can't see from that angle, but on the other angle, it's really black clouds. So my 964 got a free washing thanks to Mother Nature.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe that is your wife in the middle.
Yes,
in the middle.
She wants to become a Concours judge. She is actually very competitive and is planning to enter her Boxster again this year. And they were talking about past members who did not do so well in Concours and then just kind of like quit the club because their car got hammered in Concours. and she brought up the fact that after she spent like 30 hours prepping her car, our own Ron Gordon forgot to announce her name as the winner in her class until after the banquet was over. We walked up and asked, we thought Roxanne won, and he looked and he goes, "Oh yeah, she did." And we said, "Well, you never announced it," and he felt so bad. But like she said that didn't stop me. They make me want to quit the club. But yeah, evidently some people can't handle not winning Concours and quit PCA because of it. So I said that's why we have Works Reunion.
Oh. All right. Anything else going on the weekend? I kind of want to talk a little bit about club coordination and the whole reason why we're here in Germany with Paul and crew. Is that all right?
Yeah, let's take advantage of having Paul with you.
So, Paul, you've been the conduit for a lot of different projects when you were in the role at PEC Atlanta, and now that you're back at AG, and you kind of went to a different department for a little bit, but now you're back in club coordination. It's been 2 years now?
Almost two, so a year and a half, almost.
And we're happy to see you back in this role because you're back in our world. But maybe share with those that don't understand club coordination and why PCA comes across the pond to see you all.
Yeah, well, actually, I joined Porsche in 2007, so I was fortunate enough to be brought on board to look after the club relations, and started back in the day with you and working through the program through. And actually, if you look at it this year, the clubs are celebrating their 70th anniversary. So the first club was formed for Porsche on May 26, 1952. And so starting with the original 13 members, it's now grown to a community with over 250,000 members around the world, so over 720 clubs in 86 countries. And to commemorate this, we've created a special portal. If everyone wants to take a look at that, it's on PorscheNews.com. PorscheClubNews.com, sorry. If you go, there's a whole section on the 75th anniversary with information on the dates. There's the stories. We invite the club members to upload their stories and tell us about the clubs, what makes them so passionate, what's exciting for them. And actually this year, when we were at Amelia Island, we had the chance to meet with Dave Rodenroth, and we posted a video we did with him there. Or Brock Keane was at Parade, so there's a report on Brock and his activities. So this portal here has a lot of information. There's the graphics on the 70th anniversary, and what's really cool here, this club history part. If you look at 70 years of history, we've actually drilled into it and chopped into decades. So there's the 7 decades, and each one of those decades, if you go into that, there's a wealth of information on pictures and stories and graphics that go with it. So there's hundreds of pictures and stories that are going with these, all downloadable, so people can use it if they're looking at the highlights of the years the clubs were founded in those years. So a wealth of information there as well. A little bit farther down, we have the reports on the events themselves, the major events we've done around the world. So we've been supporting a lot of the bigger events this year to celebrate the 70th anniversary. So we started on May 26th in Holland and in Le Mans with a classic event, but we also had a report from the Porsche Parade this year. So Brock Keane was there, and on behalf of us, he was on the parade itself and covered the passion, enthusiasm there. So we had a lot to talk about this year. It's been fantastic to look at the clubs and in their various iterations. And here, in the PCA, we sent the challenge out. If you could do something with the logo, and you came back with this very incredible remaking of the logo itself in the cars. I think there's no other club on the planet that could do that. So kudos to everybody that was involved in doing that, and that's definitely become a very iconic picture, I think, looking forward. But coming back to the clubs in general, I think that they've always been important to Porsche, and I think on this trip alone, you've met Ilse Nedele, who started the clubs back in the day with Huschke von Hanstein and the group. Just been a part of our DNA that we've always had a very close relation to the clubs themselves, and seeing how they've grown. And as Porsche started as a small company and grew, we've managed to grow along together. So this is a lot of this information on the clubs themselves is on that portal. So please go out and take a look at that. And I think it's great that this time around EC has been here to visit us. Corona has definitely put a damper in that, but we're always happy to have you come and visit us. A lot of the clubs come and visit us here at the factory, and it's important to set those relationships and to make the links, to forge the links across the continent. So we're very happy to have had you here this week.
Yeah, it's it's very evident spending time here. We're actually here with our current president, Tom Gorsuch, and if everything goes correctly, the next incoming president would be Aaron Ambrosino, and it's it's encouraging to see no matter where or who you're talking with in Porsche, they recognize PCA and the number of ambassadors we represent. And every department we go to, they kind of think of their way of sharing whatever they're responsible for, and they want to share a bit with PCA. And they always have PCA in the back of their mind, be it e-bikes, or if it's motorsports, or if it's the museum, if it's all these little pieces of their world they want to share with our club. And I think that's so unique. That yes, there are other car clubs, yes, there's other manufacturers that have a relationship with their car clubs, but by far, I think the model example is Porsche and PCA.
I think it's just that our histories are so intertwined, and the PCA is a big part of that. I mean, with 250,000 members worldwide, PCA now with over 150,000 of those, that goes a long way back. But if you look at our history as well with regards to the history we have in our company, America's always been a big part of that. So it's not a surprise that that's developed over time that way, and it's something that we're very proud of. And as I said earlier, I think that, in a lot of ways, the PCA that we've developed in the last years is benchmark for a lot of the clubs that are coming up. So we would like to share that experience and bring the divisions in there. I mean, the discussions we had with e-bikes today it's a new direction, new group, and I think it's very key that they start talking to you now, looking forward, because the American market is significant.
Yeah, and so we're actually in a working area, so I apologize if there's some background noise. But let's kind of talk about who we saw, maybe just highlights. First off, Sebastian Merkel.
Yeah. So in our team, we are the global community group within the experiential marketing group, and Sebastian Mertke is the leader of the group. He's the director of the group itself. And so as a team, we look after the communities in general. So there's the club community, which is by far the largest community in the world, but there's also the golf community, the circle. We're looking at doing some stuff for GTs, looking at new communities. So it's the group that looks after the communities. And in that group there, myself and Matthias Menna and Stefan Griese look after the clubs worldwide.
And while we were here, it just happened to coincide with the number 2 largest Porsche Club group, and that is?
The Porsche Club Great Britain has 22,000 members, and they celebrated their 60th anniversary a year ago, and because of Corona, they had to postpone it. So they had planned a large trip where they were going to do a drive from the UK through Europe. And in the meantime, they've now come. They went from the UK through Spa to Zuffenhausen, and they came and visit us here for a couple of days, which coincided with your visit, which was very cool. And they've now moved on to Italy to visit our new experience center in Franciacorta, and then back. So to commemorate their 60th anniversary, we had them here. We had special tours, and it was very special. On Friday evening, we actually had a gala dinner in the museum itself, in the collection, where we had representatives of Porsche Club Great Britain. There's 80, 90 people from there. You happened to be there. The president of the Porsche Club Germany was there. So actually we had a cross-representation of 3/4 of the club population, if you will, worldwide, because those are the 3 of the biggest clubs that there are.
Yeah, I want to thank the folks at Porsche Club Great Britain for welcoming us with open arms to their celebration. And as you said earlier, we met with the Porsche Club of Germany, and I felt very proud that all the discussions, they kind of look towards us for some advice. They look towards us for sharing ideas of how to make things work. And I promised to them at any point, if they're looking at certain programs that they want to do, surely we're willing to share the recipe and hope that they're successful as well. So it was really cool. And the dinner that Paul was talking about, I don't think it's ever been done, where they had a dinner gala at the top of the Porsche Museum when the museum was closed.
In the evening, where the turntables are. So for those who've been to the museum before, there are the 5 turntables up top. And in that area, we had the banquet, which was very cool, because Richard Atwood was also there. There were some guests so it was a very, very nice evening. And I think it's important to reach out. I mean, you and I have been talking about what we can do next year for the 70th anniversary of setting up touch points for clubs globally. So whether it be at Rennsport or Parade or Le Mans Classique or the other events, the Goodwood, that are going on, that's something we could definitely look into. And I think we laid the foundations for that.
Yeah, and they definitely want to come over and do events with us. Let's jump right into.
I think it'd be worth mentioning that so people can understand with the clubs. In the U.S. or North America, there's only 3 clubs that Porsche recognizes. And I don't think that's changed. Porsche Club of America, the Porsche Owners Club, which is I think primarily in Northern California, and of course the 356 registry. And while you'll see a lot of different Porsche clubs online and Facebook groups and whatnot, the three I just mentioned are the ones that Porsche recognizes, and that goes a long way because that's who Porsche reaches out to when they come to helping with events or doing projects and whatnot.
Yep, absolutely. The next stop is probably to what many consider sacred grounds, and it's a little place called Weissach. And maybe you can share with folks what Weissach is, and then I'll explain the photos that people are looking at.
Well, it's not on any tour. You can't walk up and say, we'd like to sign up for the 12 o'clock tour of Weissach. It's a research and development facility. And if you've ever been to the national office here at PCA, we've got a very, very large blueprint frame of, I think it was the first zoning request, if you will, of what Weissach was going to look like. It's, if you heard the term flock, that's where it also comes from, because that's one section of Weissach, or the closest town is Flock to where the motorsports division is, which is the far end of Weissach. But this is where the test track is. This is where the designers work out. It's where the wind tunnel. It's where everything happens as far as engineering and design. And to me, even though we're usually not allowed at most of the buildings, and there's no cameras allowed or anything recordable, I always tell people that it was easier to get into the White House than it was to get into Weissach.
Yeah, so the photo that you're looking at online is the entrance gate, and I didn't want to be disrespectful, so I kind of stepped a little bit further away to take a photo. But before you cross those gates, you actually have to sign in with proper ID. You lock up your phones, and then you have to be escorted in by a Porsche employee. So the security is very serious, but immediately as soon as you cross through those gates, your eyes start wandering at all of these different things that you shouldn't be seeing. And I can't talk about exactly what I saw, but you can imagine that there are upcoming models that are being tested and driven around. We even saw certain vehicles with things hitched to them as they were testing for, I guess, durability. We saw cars that were camouflaged. These cars obviously are production cars that were parts where people can see from the outside without going in. But to the right of this photo, which I don't think I shared with Robert, there was a Sport Classic, but it was like a Sport Classic that I don't think was a full production model because it was a little bit different. But yeah, so as you're in Weissach, we would first met with Grant Larson talking about the 70 years of design, and hopefully he will bring that presentation to an upcoming PCA event, probably next year's parade, if we're lucky. And from there, we cross the line. There's a little line. I don't know.
That's actually a fun fact when you're talking about Weissach and Flacht, Manny. There's actually two counties. So the county line runs through the property, and the R&D development center is in Weissach. And actually, the motorsport division is down in Flacht, which used to be almost about a kilometer in 1,000 meters in total length, which now, surprising enough, I haven't been there in about 3/4 of a year. It's completely changed. You wouldn't recognize it. That area that was fields and open space between the two is now virtually buildings all the way through to Flacht. And Flacht has its own entrance now. There's a second entrance, thank God, to let people onto the property and stuff. So it's changed a great deal, but there is that line that runs through, which is why Made in Flacht is actually, it's made in another area. And the motorsport too are very proud of that.
Yeah.
I remember when last time I went, we had lunch at the casino, which is the cafeteria. And I don't know if it was you, Paul, or someone said, we have to eat before the motorsport people get here, because evidently they bus all the motorsport people, which is probably well over 1,000 people from, like you said, from Flock, which is walkable within the facility. It's all in the gated facility. But evidently once they get there, the cafeteria changes completely. So I remember we had to have lunch before motorsport got there.
We had to get in for the wave. There's so many people on site that they time the lunches in waves, and so if we get in before the one wave, and it's actually now, if you remember, many years ago there was a small cafeteria or casino as they call them, down in Flacht, and that's right now in construction, so it's all up in the new areas. You have to bus everybody up, but it's nice. If the weather's good, it's a good 15-minute walk, comfortable 15, 20-minute walk back to your office. So after lunch, it's a nice little break.
I was giggling earlier. Paul was talking about change in the property in the area around Weissach, because I pulled a classic thing that I often, poke fun at my dad. I put in the address on the GPS to go to Weissach, but as I got there, I kind of recognized where I needed to go, and then I saw Flocked and I saw the arrow, and I'm like, okay, well that's where we need to go. But actually underneath, and we got lost.
That's the long version. They got lost.
I got lost.
He didn't listen to his Navi. He decided he knew better.
Not only did I not listen to the Navi, but then also I didn't listen to my wife, which she had her phone navigating. But turns out the sign that I saw, I didn't realize Flock had its separate entrance now. So I followed that arrow as opposed to underneath of it. It says, so it's Flocked and arrow up, and I thought, man, go forward. And then there's Weissach underneath Flock, but the arrow that we didn't see because it was covered by a branch or whatever, it was pointing to the right. So I got in a bit of trouble because I'm like, no, we're supposed to go forward. And I did kind of recognize where we're going, but we went to the new entrance. Almost got to the new entrance, and then we called Paul and turned around. But anyways, that's why that just gives you an idea of how much change there is. I believe they said there's like 16,000 employees now.
Wow. If you take all the contractors on site now, I think when I started in 2007, it was about 6.5. Yeah. And now, Matthias Scholz was saying they're up to about 16,000 people on site.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
So without going into too much details, I'll save it for later. But I can tell you there's some awesome iterations that are going to be coming into the future, and you'll be excited to see them.
Watch the space.
Watch the space. Yes, absolutely. So where did we go from there, Paul? After Weissach.
Weissach was the Thursday. Friday was the factory tours. So we were with the Club Great Britain.
Yeah, we joined. Yep.
We joined them, and we looked at the 911 factory to begin with. Then we looked at the Taycan factory in the afternoon, which is quite a jump if you look at the old to the new.
Right.
It's a huge step up, or just a step into the modern
state
of the art.
So some insider information for folks is, the museum is closed on Monday. So if you come over here, don't expect the museum to be open on Monday. The tours, you have to do those in advance.
You have to book them in advance because they are limited, so they need to be booked in advance. And you book now. You book either the 911 or the Taycan, or you can book the tour in Leipzig as well.
Yeah.
But there are tours that need to be booked in advance. And for those of you who haven't done the Taycan Museum, or the Taycan tour, I definitely recommend it because it is state-of-the-art production. If you've seen the 911, or if you can manage to book both and do the 911 first, I believe, and then do the Taycan afterwards, because that gives you the progression. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So when I saw the Taycan factory, it was literally a very, very deep hole in the ground. How many stories down or floors down is it?
I'm not sure. I remember them
info.
No, not classified, but I think there's more underground than there's above ground, and there's a lot.
Yeah,
there's a lot above ground. So
I remember them telling us that maybe 3 stories high they could go because they couldn't block the airflow from Zuffenhausen to Stuttgart, and so they were limited. So they went underground to build the factory, which I thought was a really fascinating way to address this challenge, with the environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And state of the art, they have these platform robots that go around, but yet they're still very proud that they're being assembled by hand. And to see the 911 line, which is more traditional in sense, and then going over and seeing the Taycan line, it's both very cool. We got to see the marriage, and the marriage is when the engine and the chassis body come together. So we got to see it on the 911 line as well as on the Taycan line. Incredibly impressive. And what was new, and I've been to a number of these tours with other folks, but new this time was they had a way to show you the paint booth or where the cars are painted. So it's like a dedicated room, and they talk to you about the process and how the guns change, clean out and change, and they can shoot a red car, then a black car, and then a blue car, and they do all that in line. You don't have to stop the production line, and it's quite amazing. And it tells you about all the thickness of the paint. They what do you think they dust the car off before they paint it? Any idea?
What do they use?
What do they use? What do they
I would
dust
think
with?
air.
Is it some sort of electrostatic, like charge something?
No,
So the
it's
dust
like
doesn't stick.
oh shoot, it's not a peacock. It's an animal feather. Oh shoot,
Ostrich feather?
ostrich feather. Yes, it's the ostrich
wow.
feather. They have like this big roller with a bunch of ostrich feathers that just kind of tumbles like like a car wash, and the ostrich feather is the best material to use to get all the dust off the car before it's painted.
Right now, Richard Griot's listening and trying to figure out how he can get hold of a bunch of ostrich feathers to sell them as
Invest
the
in an
ultimate
ostrich
car
farm.
duster.
Yeah, and probably another highlight is we went to visit Traumwerks. And Manny, I think you know what Traumwerks is.
Yeah, that's so. I got to. I can't remember which visit it was, but we went to Hans-Peter Porsche, who is one of the sons of Ferry Porsche. Went to his home, and we became friends because he saw my collection of Porsche toy cars, and he always said, "You have to come by my house if you're ever in Austria." So it worked out that Paul Gregor set it up, and we got to talk about toys and collectibles, and he was collecting Marklin toys at the time, and he was hoping to build a museum or a place he could display them. So Traumwerks is essentially his collection on display, and it's a phenomenal collection. I think Marklin came in and built a really, really huge HO scale train display that just by itself is worth seeing, and it was so realistic. And the best part about it was, we got this tour from Hans-Peter Porsche, and he whispered to me, he said, "There's one Ferrari in this whole model display of trains." And he walked me to this one little mountain road, and he pointed to it, and it was a Ferrari being towed because it broke down. I thought that was the funniest thing.
That is the place where Peter puts all of his collections. He's collected over the years. The Macklin are a lot of tin, but it's not just the trains. He started out with toys.
Tin toys.
Tin toys that are like years old plus, and they're boats, they're submarines, there's all kinds of working engines, combustion. He put it all into the museum. And actually, he built that area himself. Macklin is the brand that supplied does all the toys and the trains, but it was his passion. He brought in the designers, and he started his first ones with his kids. Like he built the trains and built the areas with his kids. His kids gave him a small scale environment with mountains and everything for his 80th birthday. And but this was one of his dreams. It was his dream work, and he built
it
that.
has a restaurant inside, and it's a sizable museum, if you will. It's not a like a one-room display. It's it's got cars inside of it. It's definitely worth the visit.
So it's a figure eight configuration, very similar to some of this more simple model train, right? So it's modeled after that. And as you walk up these ramps, you see, like any single display there, a collector would be proud to just have that single display. And there are hundreds, if not thousands, of these displays in this beautiful museum. And he's had a lot of this stuff before the museum was all at home. And, the dining room or the basement or in his garage. And I think at some point his family, his wife decided, you need to do something with this. And that was sort of the impetus to say, okay, sounds like a good idea. Let me put together a place to show him off.
To put it into context, in that train area, there are 74 trains running at the same time.
Yeah.
And so they're all controlled, and they all have systems, and they go through, and there's 3 areas. There's Switzerland, Austria, and Germany. They're showing the Alps.
Yeah.
And there's a 17-minute loop which actually goes through from the morning, 24 hours.
Yeah.
And so you see a sunrise and a day and a sunset, and the amount of detail is absolutely astronomical. There's the Porsche diesel tractor factory. There are the Porsche factories. There's all these miniature things that are set up inside. It's incredible.
And of course, there's a lot of things that are on display that were made by these various train companies. but he has also tailored some of the pieces to represent Porsche or things that they do. And one perfect example was they have this, I think it's a 1/64th scale Cayenne that they loaded up a computer and motor and so on and so forth. Basically what it does is it drives through a path, hits the blinkers to turn and exit, and then it comes down this little side road and hits the blinker again on the right side, turns into the driveway, comes to the garage door, stops, the garage door opens, and the car pulls in. It's unbelievable. And there's no visible wires, it's all through programming. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's I think is it in Salzburg? Is that where it's located?
It's on the German side, so it's about 19 kilometers from Salzburg, but it's on the German side. So it's a town called Anger, Anger. And if you just Google Traumwerk, Hans Peter, it'll come up. But definitely worth a visit. And the restaurant itself is the best museum restaurant I think I've ever been to. So it's phenomenal. It's very nice and great for kids. There's tons of stuff to look at and play. So if you're traveling through Europe, it's definitely a place to go visit.
Yeah, so if you follow on Instagram, you can if you just look up Traumwerk, it's a great Instagram account to follow because they're always posting pictures of their displays or their special toys.
Changes all the time.
All the time. And I want to give a shout out to Hans Peter Porsche for the causes that he uses the museum to help support in some of the stories. Like obviously there's train set up where you can put dollar bills or coins or whatever it is, euros, to support local charities. But through COVID, the one example is that there's this huge circus tent outside, and I'm thinking, oh, it's a circus in town. And it was actually, to make the story a bit more concise, is because of COVID, this town to town or circus really was not able to do anything, and they were literally about to get all of their cars or assets taken away from them. And he set them straight, and he wanted to bring their circus to the museum, show it off, let people know that they're in town, and then support them and let them do their business while it's tied to Traumwerks. And
he has a long link. He collects bears and he has certain passions, and this has always been one that he's enjoyed. And so for him it was very important. They now actually the next special edition that's coming out, the next display, is focusing on circus, and so that's why it's very temperate. He actually managed to arrange for the circus to be there. The museum is set up for circus. We saw some of the displays inside were being changed, so it's all about circus and artists and stuff. So it's quite, and he has a number of initiatives. Also the Thomas Sabo, the Volkswagen van that he bought is a piece of art, but that was a donation also for charity for children. Children helps. So he does an awful lot.
So let me just change it up and kind of share with you some things that I have been kind of enjoying while here in Germany. And Robert put up the photo of the food, and that wasn't actually the food in the museum, but that was just a pit stop at in Munich. That's a pit stop in Munich of Paul's house, and man, I tell you what, I haven't had a bad meal since I've been here. But that was actually, unbelievably delicious because it was made with love, made by his wife. So,
but actually, it's just that Munich is about halfway to Hans Peter's Traumwerk. So when we left Stuttgart, we had the banquet the evening before. We had to leave very early. We had to leave at like 7:45 in the morning.
Yeah.
And we got to Munich, and it was time for a break and an espresso coffee and a quick bite, and then on to see Hans Peter in time. So it was a busy day, but we was glad to have you guys drop through. So
yeah. So we've been on the road quite a bit. It's been like 6 in the morning starts, 7 in the morning starts, and we're out, maybe getting to bed by midnight or 1 o'clock. But in between those stints, we're been covering a lot of ground, which means you have to drive a little bit. Now we have a rental. They don't even have them in the States. It's called a VW Chiron. It's like a little baby minivan.
It's a big minivan for Europe.
It's a big minivan but it's not even the size of Odyssey. It's more of the size of like a RAV4 that they've modified to seat 7 people. But the cool thing about it is it's a manual. It's got no power. In fact, when I was pulling out of the garage at the museum, it's on a quite bit of a slope. And in first gear, I didn't give it enough gas and I stalled with everybody in the car. So it was a bit embarrassing. But we did get to drive on the autobahn, and for those of you that haven't driven on the autobahn, you better do so before they change the rules and the laws. It's not a free for all, it's not a free for all at all. But there are certain areas that you can truly enjoy the speed of your car. And what's great is, and it's changed in the past decade, but for the most part, everyone that's driving on the roads, you won't believe how choreographed it is, and for the most part, people stay to the right unless they're passing on the left, and as it should be. And I don't know why we can't do it in the States, but man, it is a treat to be able to drive on the autobahn.
Passing on the right is very expensive. So passing on is a big no. You just don't do that. And keeping the left side open is also a common. So I think people understand that if you don't have to slow down. If you go off and you get out of the left lane for a second, let somebody by and come back out again, it doesn't cost you a single meter, but the traffic just flows better. So I think it's just, in general, the way it is. But no, we've done quite a bit of travel. We actually were lucky enough to make it down from the Traumwerk. We went down to Zell.
Yep.
And there was supposed to be an event Porsche was organizing an event this weekend to close the Großglockner, which is the pass there. And the idea was to close the pass. It was the season closing. Supposed to be for Sunday morning. We'd try to hope to hit that like at 7 in the morning or something, but the weather forecast was bad and they called for snow to close the pass, and so they moved the event up to Saturday morning, which obviously we couldn't make because we were in the museum. So we didn't get that, but we did manage then on Sunday to go up, and we thought we'll try and go up there until the storm comes.
Right.
And lucky enough, the storm didn't come, and because the storm was supposed to come, virtually nobody went up. So we had my, how did they say it? Revelation. I have revelation, because we had a little stint that we were able to experience a Turbo S and a GT3 on some very curvy roads, and I really came out with I always knew the Turbo S was an amazing car, but in the States, I think when you talk about both cars, it's sort of like automatically lean towards a GT3, but I'm here to tell you a Turbo S, especially in Europe where you have room to exercise that vehicle, and you come across varying, terrain and wet and dry and gravel and everything. The Turbo S is king, absolutely king. Is it as analog and loud and more sensory than the GT3? No. I mean, the track weapon should be a GT3, absolutely. But if you're using a vehicle at speed on highways like Germany, man, the Turbo S just shines. I think it's like your kids. You don't have to choose which one you like better. They're both very viable propositions, and they are both phenomenal packages on their own.
I've never thought about the Turbo S in that fashion. It was just.
We had very, very mixed weather, to be honest. So we had a lot of rain, and then some pretty heavy rain in between as well. And that's definitely where the wet mode and the Turbo S shines. So
all right, so let's save, unless you two have any questions, let's save more Germany stuff, and you guys want to talk a little bit about Porsche news.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot, except I guess obviously Paul knows the big talk is still the IPO. What's Porsche going to be really valued at? What's supposedly the stock's supposed to be on sale at the end of the month, so that's just 2 more days. I haven't seen anything as of this morning, which should be Monday morning, about when the exact date's going to be. But how's the feeling there? Is there any? Is it a lot of discussion about Porsche's? To me, it's like their independence is just around the corner.
I'm not, the communication that are being very, very controlled. I mean, there's a lot of interest, people looking. I know the news are reporting on it as well, but all of the official statements come from our press department. So I think that's where you should look to find the newest. It's very controlled what is being communicated around an IPO. It needs to be regulated. There are things that are in place that need to be formally taken care of, and so I think you're about as well informed as all of us as anybody else would be.
Yeah, I've been here.
Take the laptop outside and listen to Guest Paul again.
I know. Seriously,
Seriously, man.
I've been here for almost a week, and those three letters have not been mentioned by anyone. I don't know. As he said, it's very controlled. I'm sure everybody is hoping for the best, but it's not really being discussed. They're just focused on their day-to-day business and moving forward.
Any talk about the Red Bull Formula One deal over there?
There's been some side discussions on that, nothing official, and yeah.
Any reason to give Jim Hemick hope that something may come of it?
No, we found something else that will give Jim Hemick hope, but it has nothing to do with Red Bull. We'll talk about that.
What Robert just set up was, I think somebody paid to have a possible, sometimes what we do, like a creation of what the electric Boxster is going to look like.
So it's not a far stretch they got their cues from the what was it? The Mission R.
The Mission R. Yep.
The Mission R. I can see how they're trying with that, but doesn't that look kind of like an Audi TT the way they squished it? I don't know.
To me, it'll be interesting. And even with the 911, obviously 911 they know is going to go hybrid first, and then I'm sure eventually electric. And we've talked about this before. Is it still a 911 if there's motors on both the front and the rear? 911 is the only one with the engine in the rear of any auto manufacturer. That makes it quite unique. The Cayman Boxster mid-engine. I've read where they're going to try to move the batteries or the motor in the middle to keep that same neutral handling. To me, it'll be interesting to see how they address that.
I think this is part of the show. You can't see me, or those that are listening can't see. I just kind of nod my head and agree and smile. But as soon as we can talk about it, we will.
That's no fun.
That's no fun.
And of course, the only other piece of news I thought was interesting was that for those who don't know, in Porsche racing, they are still racing the 991. Which is the GT3R. It'll be the last year, and I think is that Damon? Are they just doing that in the U.S.?
I'm not sure. I'm not on the cutting edge of racing at this point, but they have released, I believe, the 992 GT3R, or at least announced it with pictures and all that. So it's about time for the .2 to be retired.
Yeah, everything's it's a swan song of the 991.2 GT3R that's raced and been so successful for Porsche. It seems like it just came out a couple of years ago, but it has been around for a while. With that said, I got to make a recommendation for a documentary I saw on, I think it was Netflix. It's called Rookie Season. It's not about Porsche. It's about racing this team called Rebel Rock, and they race a Camaro. But for those who like racing, sports car racing, you do see a lot of Porsches in there because it follows Rebel Rock as they go to the Michelin Pilot Challenge, I think, or Pilot Sport Challenge. But it's pretty well done documentary showing their challenges, their frustrations. What made me feel really good was watching a pro team totally hose up a pit stop, because I thought that only happens to amateurs like me. But even with the best pros, sometimes communications get mixed up. But it's a hour and a half movie, I think, or documentary, and for race fans, I think you'll enjoy it.
So you talked about so I had to clear it, because I won't say where we had the opportunity, but I can understand why or how someone can mess up a pit stop, because there was actually a air gun for the center lock nut that the teams use to change the tires at a pit stop, and they practice with, and they practice quite a bit to get that just right. Because I tell you what, that thing almost twisted my arm off when I fired off the trigger. So I can only imagine having the pressure of not messing up, and the weight of the gun, and then also the torque and the power. Yeah, it's a pretty stressful job, and I can see how people might mess that up.
So I'm assuming you saw the 963 over there?
It was a nice day at Weissach.
You can at least say you saw it. I'm not asking for wing settings or.
He gave all he needed to.
There's some exciting things to come. Yes.
Well, it's coming pretty soon. I mean,
Yeah, and we hope to be, we hope to be well integrated into all the communications and all the exciting things that to come. So stay tuned.
Yeah, we were talking about this morning in the office, some of us, about our plans for next year being 75 years of Porsche and how PCA will, what their plan is going to be for the events from Works Reunion to Parade to Rennsport. Plus, in addition to that, we have 60 years of the 911 and, of course, the first year of the 963, which is going to go for an overall win at Le Mans and plus Daytona and I think Sebring. So it is going to be a fun year in 2024.
Yeah, there's
or 2023. 2024 will be fun too, but 2024 will be really fun.
2023 will be
really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna be quite busy next year. Speaking of events and stuff, because we're getting to the top of the hour, let's talk about upcoming events. I'll be wrapping this trip up here in the next day or so, heading back to the States and heading to Audrain with a few PCA members and about 25 cars. So looking forward to seeing some of you all at the gathering at the Rough Point. After that, we've got a number of kind of internal visits and such, getting ready for Unstock. But before we actually arrive at Unstock, some of us will be going to SEMA, which is a specialty equipment manufacturers association show where we're actually pounding the pavement at the convention center.
28,000 steps a day is what we did last time.
So we're trying to get all the latest technical information on all things. And then you saw the preview there that was put up, the LA Auto Show, that we are going to do cars and coffee. We talked about it on the last show, the special access at the floor of the Porsche booth. And then
it'll be coffee and new Porsche cars. So don't think you're going to bring your Porsche in for a normal cars and coffee.
Correct.
And then that registration opens on October 19th.
Okay.
So, and once again,
they're limited.
Very limited. And, if you're not getting e-break news, go in and subscribe to it, because this is where you're going to get your information. Damon here does it every Tuesday, comes out Tuesday evening, Wednesday morning. And this is where you're going to find the latest links to a lot of these events. But we're very excited to have the member event for Friday for the LA Auto Show again.
And then we'll be going right into the weekend with Tech Tactics West. We're still awaiting to hear at which location, but as soon as we have it, obviously we'll share with you all.
And that registration opens October 24th. That's the plan so far. It'll, as far as I see it, the same as before, 2 one-day events, same schedule both days, so it gives the opportunity to fit as many people as possible. And I think it's also worth mentioning that with Unstock, we're up to about 80 cars. I think we can fit 125. So if you have any questions, email us of whether or not your car is Unstock worthy, I guess. We got a lot of interesting cars that registered. So it's going to be a great event to come out to.
And we actually had the Unstock discussion all the way here in Germany at dinner one night, where there's a collector that has interest in bringing a very uniquely modified vehicle. So I'll put him in connection with you, man.
Did you explain how you created your own German word?
We didn't get that far. He just assumed it was blessed by somebody. All right, how about videos?
Yeah, videos. We have the latest GT2 RS 1 mile review, which you can watch now. Coming up next for videos tomorrow, so it'll be out by the time you listen or watch this, will be an in-depth review of the Cayenne Turbo GT by Vu. And then out in the future, we have a 993 Carrera RS versus Carrera RS Club Sport video. Less of a versus or comparison than showing our viewers how a Carrera RS differs from a base Carrera and a Club Sport from a Carrera RS. Vu got to drive a local Safari 911 SC Weissach edition, which will be an upcoming 1 mile review. Carrera Cup USA, not very much content on those cars, and Manny got to drive one. So look forward to that in the next couple weeks, early October. And then we have some DIY videos with the upcoming winter garage season on replacing Macan spark plugs, and also watching panorama editor Rob Sass replace his water pump, which I think will be pretty entertaining.
Yeah. Entertaining is being very nice. I think we had to edit out all the cussing that Rob was doing, as he broke more parts than he fixed on that video.
But he got it running, and it is still running fine, as far as I know.
So we also released the window repair video, I guess we could call it, where showing
Yep, I believe that's for 986s is what Vu had as the demonstrator car. I'm pretty sure 996 will be the same, and possibly 987, 997. But it's a little very easy fix to have your window drop down when you open the door so it clears the roof. If you have zip ties, but you don't have the OEM Porsche part and you need that to work, it's something you could probably do in a parking lot.
Yeah, it's and I was looking at the comments from the most recent podcast. The word we were looking for bag, I think when you cross maybe past Chicago, is sec. When you go to the convenience store, they will ask you, not do you want a bag with that, but do you want a sack with that?
A plastic sack.
Well, that's a good segue to ask people to please comment, because we do read them. We find them fun that you're listening, and so when we see you out at events and you talk about these details that we only have said in the podcast. So we certainly enjoy the comments. Of course, be sure to like and subscribe. I want to thank Ski Maker, who gave us 5 stars and talked about how much he loved the show. He did ask a funny question because we haven't seen him lately. He's like, did something happen to Nathan? No, Nathan's just busy, but he'll definitely be back. We have more videos with Nathan in the future. So
he's actually going to be in the so the next Tactics Live is about non-petroleum oil. There's a company that's developed. It's a lot of chemistry, but it's really fascinating. And they've been blessed by Porsche, and they're working on other things with Porsche because obviously we're looking to a world that's less dependent on oil. So it'll be an interesting discussion of this new alternative oil. And then the Tech Tactics after that will be with Nathan, where we're going to cover the 997.2, a 997.2 buyer's guide. So fans of Nathan Mers will see him again.
Yep, and I do want to say we all love Nathan Mers videos, and we know our audience does. It's, I believe, the Carrera 3.2 video, which we released last year, is still one of our best videos in the past couple of years, because you guys want to know about those cars. So our next video with Nathan is going to be all about, or everything you need to know about, the Porsche 993, or the 911 built from 1994 to 1998. Haven't received a draft yet. He said he's extremely busy this year, but that will be the next one, so stay tuned.
Absolutely. So before I do my official sign-off, Paul, anything before we sign off?
Just that it's great to have been here and great to have talked. And it's also, for us, it's fantastic to have the PCA here to visit us again. I think for Aaron as incoming and for Tom that are here, I think it's just been a phenomenal experience. I think it's very important that we keep these bonds open, these relations open, that we build the bridges to the other clubs. So great to have you here, and look forward to seeing as many of you as possible, either here or there, and even next year in the 75th anniversary. It's going to be a big year.
Thank you, Paul.
Before you let him go, I'm sure the listeners will want to hear, because Paul's not just an employee of Porsche, he's also a Porsche enthusiast, about what he drives.
08 997 C2S.
And there was something else that we saw.
Macan GTS.
Macan GTS.
Yeah. Nice.
Yep.
So,
Absolutely.
That's a company car.
Which one do you like more?
oh, there's
Just
no
kidding.
question.
You don't have to.
Don't get anybody mad. All right, folks. Thanks for listening. If you aren't currently a PCA member and you own a Porsche, what are you waiting for? Grab that VIN. Go to PCA.org. If you haven't bought a Porsche yet, we can help you out with that too. We've got a test drive program. Once again, go to pca.org. Remember to follow the podcast Instagram page, see behind the scenes photos, Porsche Club Insider, all one word. Email us if you have any questions, podcast@pca.org, or simply comment on the YouTube podcast. You can just send us a note at any time. We love hearing from you. Thank you for all of your support. It looks like we're getting great traction with the podcast on the podcast platforms as well as on YouTube. So with that, I'll see you back in the States here shortly. Take care.
Bye.
Bye now.